Well, hello, everyone. It's Scott Roberts and Terry Mann, and we are here for the 43rd Astronomical League live program. Tonight's program is about dark skies, and that is a sensitive topic to some, but a very important topic to most of us watching this program. So, Terry, I'll let you take it away. Thanks for having me on this program to help kick it off.
Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate you being here, and thank you for everything you've done to help the League. Tonight, we have got an amazing program. We have people from Dark Sky, Ohio. We'll be talking about light pollution. We have John Goss, who is the media officer for the Astronomical League. And last but certainly not least is David Levy. And we are so glad to have everybody on tonight. So what I would like to do is start with David Levy. He always kicks us off with a bit of poetry on every show. David, thank you so much for committing so much of your time to be with us.
Well, thanks, Terry. And I know at the end you're going to talk about Alcon coming up next summer, which I plan to be at. Anyway, last week, Scott and I drove up to Flagstaff for the opening of the Lowell Observatory Discovery Center. It was outstanding with a capital O and a capital G. They asked me to read a brief poem, and I'm going to read that again today. But first, what I wanted to do was to quote a little bit from my own biography of Clyde Turnbaugh. I never had the chance to explain to that audience how saddened he was when he had to leave Lowell, the place that he loved so much, after the Second World War. But he did, and we talked about it for hours and hours and hours. But what I wrote was this: the telescope Tombaugh was finally about to leave stayed at Lowell, its long career not nearly over. Years later, director Arthur Hoag claimed that with its many projects, the 13-inch had become one of the world's most productive telescopes. If it had consciousness, and I believe all telescopes do, it might have wondered what would happen to it without the man it had shared a life with. A man who had never quite given up searching one more pair of plates for hidden treasure. The man who called himself a traveler, going over the next hill with an eternal hope. Those of you who are interested in history will know that November 22nd marks a very important and sad anniversary, the assassination of President Kennedy in Dallas. And my second quote will be one from him, which he said just a few months before that day. He was getting an honorary degree from the American University in Washington. And in his lecture, if you want to hear him say it, I would suggest that you watch the movie 13 Days, because it's right at the very end of it. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures, and we are all mortal. Which brings me back to Lowell Observatory. Lowell, I was explaining the quotation that I was going to close with tonight to an audience of about 1,000 people. And I started to tell how much Wendy loved that quotation. And as I was introducing the quotation, I mentioned Wendy and I said, may she rest in peace. There was an audible gasp from the audience. And this was 2 years ago, and it really, really got to me. I stopped, I looked around a little bit, and then something in my little doggy brain said, just keep going, just keep going. And I told them how we would do this quotation at the end of a radio show when we had it, and then at the end of all my lectures. And when Wendy was in the audience, I would see her mouthing the quotation as I said it. So then I invited her in the final lectures I gave with her to come up to the podium and say it with me. So I'd like to share it with you now. It's by Ralph Hodgson, and it's the ending of the song Upon It. I stood and stared. The sky was lit. The sky was stars all over it. I stood. I knew not why, without a wish, without a will. I stood upon that silent hill and stared into the sky until my eyes were blind with stars. And still I stared into the sky. Thank you very much, Terry, and back to you.
Thank you, David. I love that. That always just kind of hits a part of your soul. I mean, it just connects you to the sky. So thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So all right. The next one we will go to is John Goss. As I said earlier, John's our media officer, and he's going to talk a bit about one of the programs within the Astronomical League.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Terry.
Sure.
Here we are, Astronomical League. We have 24,000 members. Light pollution is a big deal to us all. But quite often the officers, I'm sure Terry will confirm this, quite often we are asked, well, what are you doing to help prevent, help solve light pollution? And we can kind of hem and haw, but we do have some programs. And I'd like to talk to you about one of them, which pretty concrete. And let's just head on with that. I'll try to do this seamlessly. Okay. I'd like to talk about the Dark Sky Advocate Observing Program. The Astronomical League has, 60, 70 more observing programs? It's kind of hard to say because there are different levels and different requirements for different ones. But you go out and look at the sky, some aspect of it, and have a logbook. You log galaxies or star clusters, this or that. Well, this observing program is completely different. That's why I say it's unlike any other. There is a little bit of observing involved, but there isn't much. Isn't much at all. Now, this statement here is really the whole heart of the problem. We all like talking about light pollution. You go out with a bunch of people out under the stars, this or that, and looking at stuff. And off in the distance, there's some lights. Maybe there's a city nearby. People start complaining about it. But really, while all these people talk about it, they're disgusted, they're upset about it, but how many of them actually do anything about it? It's easy to sit back and complain, make it somebody else's fault, let somebody else do it, but not do it yourself. So this program kind of confronts that. By completing this program, you will actually do something about light pollution. You will learn something about it. You will confront the issue. You will hopefully raise awareness in your community about the issue. So this is a little bit different. It's just not observing, and we'll talk about that right now. Now, to become a dark sky advocate, The candidate must understand all the problem of light pollution. Okay. Well, that you think, well, of course we do. But when you start talking to even amateur astronomers about it, you're going to find out that they're just kind of repeating what other people have said, and it may not be completely true. So this helps force them to understand what the problem really is, and some of the easy causes and solutions. Some of the solutions. Plus, it helps to know how it really affects our society. We hear of it affecting our health. We hear it affecting nature. We hear it affecting our sleep. We hear it affecting crime, whole bunch of things. This program addresses that specifically, all those items. And it's done by completing a series of activities. One is generally in the general camp of personal enlightenment and education. This is learning about it for yourself. So we have a bunch of activities, including, which you can see what I have written down here. By doing this, it allows you to understand really what the issue is. We do have a little bit of observing here. Go down to the fourth one, talking about observing various astronomical items in the sky with a telescope in a dark sky area, in a light polluted area, and actually I think there's a third component, which is kind of a semi dark suburban area. And you can see, if you do this, you will see for yourself how it degrades your view of the night sky. There's other aspects of this besides astronomy. Economic. One of the activities is finding the electric rate in your area, figuring out how much it costs to light different light fixtures all night long, and how to lessen that cost. Nature and wildlife. We hear about the sea turtles having problems with light pollution at the shore. Well, that's just one thing. We hear about medical health issues. We hear about crime. Now, crime, when you talk about light pollution to somebody who doesn't really know much about it, you're going to be talking about, reducing the lights and shielding them and turning them off and have motion sensors and all this stuff. One of the things they're going to be thinking about is, well, what about crime? Crime's a big deal here. It's going to go up. Well, look into it a little bit more closely. And yes, in some cases it may go up, but in a lot of cases it may go down. And you're going to find out that most crime happens in the daytime. Let's move on. Another section, the second half of the whole program, is public enlightenment. That is convincing others that there is a problem and what to do about it, solutions for the problem. So one of the activities is for you to create your own program to describe the problem in your area, for you to understand what should be in lighting ordinances, to actually draft a letter to send to your public officials to ask them to look into this problem, and here are some suggestions you may add. Another one is same with the local media. Newspapers are kind of, readership's going down, but they're still an important part of this. Send letters to the editor, op-ed pieces, and all that, just to try to raise people's awareness of it. You all have your favorite bad lights to complain about in your community. A business, say, why not write a letter to that business, a nice letter, but explaining to them what the problem is and how to solve that, and how if they have shielded lights, they could actually reduce their electricity bill, stuff like that. Send it to public officials. Okay, outdoor lighting ordinance. What should it contain? People are going to ask you this stuff. Well, what it should be? Well, find out about it. This is another task in that whole program. So I'd like to leave you with this thought. 2 years ago, I was at a local city council meeting. Here I am explaining about light pollution to them. But then, and they're all kind of looking at you, with that stern look, like they're trying to be even-handed here. And one of them he kind of takes a little grin and he says, "Hey, let me tell you about my neighbor. Let me tell you about that guy down the street." You know, what, we had 5 council members. They all jumped in and started talking about uh, their neighbors, the problems in their neighborhood, what rotten lights so and so had. Well, they didn't mention names, but what rotten lights were around it. So, you know, that just shows you that everybody is affected by this, including your public officials. And they may not like it, and hopefully they can do something about it. You know, so my last sentence here before I sign off here is, you know, if no one likes bad outdoor lighting, then why does this still exist? The Astronomical League has 24,000 members. On the way, there should be 24,000 voices out there, but you know that's not the case. And so that's part of the problem. People like talking about it. They like complaining about light pollution, but so few actually do anything about it. And this program, if you complete, I think there's 20 separate activities. If you complete them all, you will have made a positive impact on your community. More people will become aware. Perhaps you will have convinced some of the businesses or neighbors who have bad lighting to tone it down, rein it in, and they aren't going to do it if nobody speaks up. That's for sure. You know, the status quo is great, but if something's not quite right, you got to speak up. So this program helps you do that. We've had this going for a number of years now, so yeah, we have made progress. But I want you to think about this. It's on our website. Just look under our observing programs, Dark Sky Advocate, and it gives you the whole list of activities, what to do, and take a look at it and see if you can make an impact on your community. Okay, Terry, I know I'm kind of speaking to the choir here, especially since I see all the people in the line there. They're all kind of, no one's shaking their fist at me or anything, but you all know what I mean. And so it's time for everyone to jump on board and do something. Thank you, Terry, for letting me stand on a soapbox here.
Anytime, John. No, thank you very much. You bring up such good points. I mean, it's something, you know, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Dark Sky Ohio, but you bring up the exact point that got me started. You know, I'm an imager, so I'm always looking for dark skies. And for so many years, I complained and complained and complained. I did nothing, but I complained really well. And so I was fortunate. A few years ago, Bob Gent, which many of you out there know Bob Gent, he was on the board of, at that time, IDA, and I believe at one time he was director of the board, I think, in IDA. Yep. He moved to Ohio to get closer to family. And I thought, you know, Bob knows a lot about this. And I called Bob and I said, Bob, Ohio does not have a chapter in IDA. I said, would you help? And could we set up a chapter in IDA? Bob said, well, yeah, I would love to. He was from Arizona and moved to Ohio, which is a bad thing to do there for skies. But Bob and I started together and working on putting a chapter together. And unfortunately, since then, Bob has passed away. And I'm telling you, he was a shaker and a mover.
Yes,
in astronomy. He is a past president of the Astronomical League. He was involved in everything. And he had this all-around knowledge about everything. He was a very rare type person that all of us cherished. And we're honored to call him friend. He was incredible. And so that's what actually got me started with light pollution. I finally said, man, it's time to quit complaining. I got to do something. And that was where it started. And from there, today, there are very few members of Dark Sky Ohio that you see here tonight because we couldn't bring everybody on. So these are some of our key people that are in Dark Sky Ohio that have made a real difference and reached out to the public and reached out in their own areas. And we have a youth group that will be giving a presentation tonight too. And they are all very involved, hands-on, knowledgeable people that you would all love to have speak at your event. Anywhere they go, they will make a difference. They'll help solve this problem. It will take time, but they'll all hang in there and they will show you the right ways and help you however they can. And that is the great thing about Dark Sky Ohio, and I'm sure other Dark Sky chapters too. So,
I have found that when I talk to people about this, one of the reactions is contact my government officials. They don't care. They're not going to do anything. Well, I'll tell you, I have found it to be just the opposite. If you're in a city with 500,000 people, yeah, it's going to be hard to get your voice heard. But if you're in a rural community or in a suburban area, I have found that they will listen, and they'll all pretty much agree with you, and they'll look into it. But you have to keep on it, or it's just gonna, the inertia is just so great, it's just not going to go anywhere. But they will listen. Our particular county has an ordinance, and that is largely due to my wife researching it, going to the council meeting or the supervisors meetings, and not just pestering, but giving them positive ideas and solutions. Say, no, this is what you should do. Do this, that, and that. And they all discuss it and change things around, which you got to be prepared. But they did listen, and they did do something about it. And boy, am I glad.
yeah, yeah. And I tell you another thing, and John, forgive me for forgetting the name of the award. John and his wife Genevieve won an award from IDA for their work with light pollution. And I forget the name
Yeah.
of the award. And you forget.
Well, no, it's right over there in the awards cabinet. Dark Sky Defender.
Yeah,
We're defenders to the dark sky. Well,
yeah. John
but
and
we
Genevieve
need a lot
both.
more of those. More people should be involved in that.
Yes, yes. So the more the better. And Dark Sky, Ohio is definitely off to a good start. So with that, I would like to first read Tracy Cardinal's bio. She will be up and speaking next. Tracy Cardinal is a community lead in community light lead for Dark Sky, Ohio. She became active within the group a few years ago, helping to pass a dark sky ordinance for her community in Springfield, Ohio. She hopes to bring awareness to the communities throughout the state on how to improve the quality of their nighttime environment. Tracy also has a master's of medical science from Emory University and works as a surgical physician assistant. So Tracy, thank you for being here. You have done some absolutely amazing things. So I'm going to turn this over to you and let you talk for a while.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. John, what you said was a perfect segue to what I'm going to talk about tonight. It's how do we get people involved? How do we get people motivated? Terry was great. She got me involved in Dark Sky, Ohio a few years ago when I was looking for ways to change the light pollution laws in my area. So she was a great resource for that. And again, we did have success. I do have a little presentation. Let's see if I can share it with you all. Is it working? Yeah, no,
I don't see it yet.
No, not yet.
Okay. Hold on one second.
Here we
There
go.
you go.
Okay. Bear with me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do here at Dark Sky, Ohio, and then some specific things related to healthcare, since that's what I do for my day job. As Terry said, I'm the community light lead for Dark Sky, Ohio. We have just a great group of people that are core members right now that are super passionate about changing laws and telling the community about light pollution. We work with, in Ohio, we work with different government and city leaders, and we teach them about light pollution. We teach them about light pollution legislation and about how to change the lights in their area. We presented to schools, colleges, and other astronomical societies about why saving our national dark skies is important. I also help run our Facebook page and our email. Let's see. Oh boy. So as Terry said, how I got involved into Dark Sky, Ohio is that I live in Springfield, and where we moved to, as you can see from this slide here, is near an industrial park. And so we have a lot of light pollution here. And one night, my young daughter said that she couldn't sleep. And so I looked out her window and I saw this and I thought, That's the problem. I initially tried to talk to the company about changing their lights and I got no response. So that made me pretty frustrated. And instead of just closing the drapes, I decided we're going to go down to the county and see if we can change something. So we ended up forming a committee. I made a call, I did a presentation. We ended up forming a committee and we met once a month for 2 years. And eventually we were able to pass an ordinance. So our ordinance is in 2022, we passed a comprehensive light pollution ordinance to hopefully one day help decrease light pollution for our community. And as I got further into learning about light pollution, I realized that it's not just about not being able to see the stars at night. There's a lot of different things, as John kind of mentioned earlier, that are involved with light pollution. So tonight, I'm going to touch a little bit on how light pollution harms human health. As Terry said, I'm in the medical field, and the more I learned about light pollution, I realized that it's not just we can't see the stars. It's for our health. We actually need darkness. So humans have evolved over millions of years with a natural light and dark cycle. And we're actually diurnal animals, meaning that we're awake during the day. And then at night, when the sun goes down, we should be sleeping, we should be resting. And that actually controls our biological rhythms. There are certain hormones and biological functions that are influenced by the sun and the natural darkness. Light pollution harms our human health in a lot of different ways. So as you see from this image here, this is kind of a normal cityscape that we see nowadays. So there's lots of light, lots of glare everywhere. And so we don't have that natural darkness, and our bodies have not really adjusted to that. We're not doing well. Light pollution has been linked to sleep disorders, depression, diabetes, cancer, and then mood disorders in children. So over the last 100 years, we are learning that this is not good for us. It doesn't just obscure our night view or cause us to not have a good night's sleep. There's a lot of other things that are related to that as well. This slide here kind of breaks that down. So if you look what happens to our bodies during the day, we're awake, there's different kind of functions, there's different kind of pathways, then we get energy. And then at night in the dark cycle, we're supposed to be resting, we're supposed to be rejuvenating. This is when we get healthy, this is when our cells turn over. And one of the main hormones that's involved in that is melatonin. It's a powerful antioxidant and anti-oncogenic or anti-cancer, and it enhances and regulates our immune system. Thyroid stimulating hormone and cortisol are also affected by our sleep and wake cycles. And these biological rhythms, they're dysregulated by excessive light and can lead to serious negative health outcomes. Why that is there's a specific cell in our eyes that detect this light. There are specific optic cells that are sensitive to light intensity and the spectral distribution of light. The cell is specifically sensitive to wavelengths from sunlight and white light emitting diodes, so those LEDs. So again, if you're walking down a city street or if you live in an area with lots of bright lights, your eyes are always on. Your body's telling you that it's not ready to go into that sleep mode. So those healthy, normal hormones that are supposed to make you healthy and clean your system at night never get turned on. So again, it's not good for us to not have darkness. We need to have darkness. So we talk a lot about, again, light pollution. We can't see the stars, but darkness is essential to our health. And I had no idea about that until I went down this path and learned about light pollution. And I think it's one of those things that we don't talk enough about, especially in the medical field. So hopefully, in addition to all these other reasons why we need to turn down our lights, it's also better for our health. So again, we promote that instead of these regular outdoor lighting, we have downcast shielded lighting. How you can do that, again, is start at home. So instead of the bright white lights that you have in your home, turn them to more amber or yellow lights. Turn off your phone screens, earlier than later. Also, your outdoor lights. So if you have lights on the outside, turn them to amber color or yellow color. It's not going to react to those cells in your eyes. Your neighbor will thank you. And it's as easy as making a phone call to your local government. You don't necessarily have to do a presentation if you don't want to, but ask your zoning supervisor what their laws are. Just start the conversation, and they may be interested in talking to you. And then you can go to darksky.org. They have great resources there where you can go along the process of making a really good light ordinance, and reach out to us. So Dark Sky Ohio, we've done it. We've got great volunteers. So we can definitely help you out as well. So that's a little bit about what we do and a little bit about human health. I think next up is Brad. I think Terry can introduce him, and he is great because he's actually in government. So he's the people that we want to talk to. So he's been great. So I think he'll tell us a little bit more about what he does.
Thank you, Tracy. And you're right. I'm going to have Brad Carey up next. Let me tell you a little bit more about him. From Wright State University and is currently on track to pursue a PhD in environmental economics. His passion for dark skies stems from his interest in astronomy and the love of exploring the natural world. Brad is working on educating the Miami Valley on the benefits of migrating light pollution and has a goal of making the entire Miami Valley a protected dark sky place. I would love to see that for every city. I admire your goals. So Brad, I will let you take off.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. Let me see. Let me share my screen real quick. We should be able, hopefully, to see my slideshow. Give me just a second.
Sure.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you. And so, like Terry said, my name is Brad Carey. I work with the city of Fairborn in Ohio. Fun fact, we are the only city in the world named Fairborn. So if you just type that in, you'll find us. I have a master's in economics and undergrad degrees in mathematics, statistics, and economics as well. We'll be pursuing a PhD in environmental economics and kind of going away from, the stereotypical talking points from an astronomical point of view, kind of talking more from what the everyday person would deem as a practical point of view. Not everyone out there is astronomers like us. Not everyone out there is involved in healthcare, but every single person is involved in economics in one way or another. And so we're going to kind of take it from that point of view. Areas of consideration for today are going to be kind of surrounding three main economic concepts. The first one is addressing what we call externalities of light pollution, specifically a negative externality. The second one would be how addressing light pollution can reduce the expenditure of resources, which is a good thing for us. And the third one, current solutions to light pollution that exist, kind of repeating what's been said before. And then to round it off, we're going to talk about the benefits economically of addressing light pollution. Going into externalities, what an externality is, it's a concept where you have two parties that are engaged in a transaction that affects a third party who's not part of that. So in the concept of light pollution, you have two parties involved. You have the consumer who is running the lights, and then you have like the power company. You'd actually have multiple parties involved in that one. But if you think of it that way, it simplifies things. Whereas the third party that's affected would be those that aren't directly using the light. So going back to the bad neighbor example who, floods out their whole yard with white halogen floodlights, they've got that transaction going on. They're using it for their purpose, but inadvertently, hopefully inadvertently, that is spilling into your yard or your window at night. Going back to Tracy's example with the industrial park, it's spilling into her daughter's windows and causing issues with sleep. From an economic point of view, externalities are considered a market failure, right? And that's just a really fancy way of saying it's inefficient, right? And the question going back to the neighbor's spotlight would be, why is your neighbor wasting energy lighting up your yard? And it's kind of a selfish way to think about it, but like, why would they want to light up your yard? Assuming that there isn't some nefarious reason. They're not just trying to be annoying or, some kind of neighborhood feud or something like that. Why would they be wanting to spend their money to illuminate your yard? And when you ask people like that, they're like, oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Why am I paying to light up my neighbor's yard? And that externality or that lighting of your neighbor's yard is inefficient. You're wasting energy to light up the neighbor's yard. And that's a really good way to bring a discussion in with a neighbor who may be open to that, at least isn't doing it intentionally. Along with dealing with these externalities, it's when we address externalities, whether they're positive externalities, which would be something where it benefits you as a third party, or a negative externality, pollution is the most common example that we have. It's an inefficiency. And this inefficiency, basically from an economic point of view, causes a consumption of resources that could be used somewhere else, or it could be saved for future use. So in the example of light pollution, you can save electricity if you follow steps to mitigate pollution, and you can use the money that you're spending on other things. You could use it, you could lower the effects of the electrical generation that we see on the climate. We could see all of these. By addressing these, we potentially lower the cost by reducing demand. So, if I'm not spending as much money to light up an entire yard, and instead I'm just lighting up my back door, I might not have to spend as much money to do that, right? You can increase the longevity of your equipment, which reduces your expenditure and it maximizes returns after a concept that we call amortization, which is basically how long does it take to pay off something and break even. Increasing that longevity basically makes you more money. So if you're able to turn off the lights when they're not being used, if you're thinking back to the old, before LEDs, turn off the lights, otherwise you're going to burn out the light bulb, right? It's the same thing right there. When we see lights on constantly, it was mentioned as well, we see a decreased awareness of crime. Most crime does not happen at night. It happens while people are away at work because criminals know that you will be, at least break-ins, which is what most people are worried about. Criminals assume that you are going to be away and they're going to have easy access to the home. When people talk about it at night, though, they talk about having to have their security lights on and all that. And this is what we call a signal theory. And signal theory basically would indicate to a thief or something, hey, if you have a security alarm or the security light, there's something there that they're trying to protect. And with this, not only are you signalizing, but if you have those lights on, you reduce the stimulus response. You basically become light blind. And what we mean by that is if you have your security lights on constantly, if someone's moving around outside, but not like directly in front of your window, you might not notice them, right? Because that light's constantly on. You basically create what we would call statistical noise. You constantly have a stimulus right there that you are trained to ignore. But if you're able to use things like automatic lights that default to a very dim state or off state, if something moves out there and the lights come on, it draws your attention. It's a stimulus that makes you look, right? So it actually can raise awareness if done correctly to have, timed motion sensing lights that are dimmed or off as their default state. and draw attention to what's being done outside if there is a criminal or something occurring out at night. We talked briefly about health impacts. We will be talking about environmental impacts, but all of these cost money. So, going to the example of cancer, diabetes, things like that, obesity, these all have medical costs, right? And if we're able to mitigate those costs, you can use that money for other things. In short, what I'm trying to tell you is light pollution is very inefficient and it hurts the economy directly in many ways. Current solutions that we can face or see to light pollution are very simple. We have 5 concepts. You make your light useful, you target it, you control it, you dim it, and you use warm colors, right? And basically, you'll see that on the website at darksky.org. These are basically addressing economic problems. Is it useful? Do you really need a light there? If you don't, then maybe abstain from the light. Are you targeted? That's talking about, full cutoff light fixtures where, you don't have light trespass above 80 degrees. So you'd be 10 degrees below horizon. You focus your light where you need it. The controls, are you timing and motion sensing? So do they activate on an as needed basis? And do they default to either a reduced state, which is a better option than normal, or do they reduce to an off state, which is the best solution? Warm colors on LEDs, I believe they use the same amount of electricity. So, but again, going to the health benefits of using warm colors during night, reducing the health impacts on that. And then going back to usage. A lot of things that I do with my work with Fairborn is I use GIS to track route usage. There are cases where you need to have stuff illuminated 24/7, major intersections in a city, for example, or major pedestrian areas where you are crossing an intersection, a busy road. You do need some form of illumination there. Now, you can use a dimmed illumination that lightens up as someone approaches, but either way, you do need to have an intersection illuminated. But I can use GIS technologies to track those routes and light according to the needs. Now, all tonight you're going to hear benefits of addressing light pollution. From an economic point, again, what it comes down to is we're increasing the efficiency of our lighting, right? We're getting a better bang for our buck, as it were. We're decreasing the costs. So like if we're using shielding and focused lighting, you can use the same amount of lumens and, point it out onto the same area so that you would, I guess from an astronomical point of view, you decrease the apparent magnitude, but basically you would increase the amount of light that appears to be there, right? So with that, you would also decrease healthcare costs, as mentioned. We also see the increased health of wildlife and the benefits to related industries. Out here in Ohio, we have a very significant deer hunting population. If we're able to increase the health of wildlife, as Aaron will talk about in the upcoming, I believe the next one, you can have, better healthy deer. You can have better healthy turkey, better healthy fish, and therefore increase, revenue on those industries related, the equipment that's needed, things like that. Another one that is huge, and again, working on it as the Miami Valley, is tourism or research economies. For example, the Colorado Plateau, which includes parts of Utah, Arizona, Colorado, with their dark sky facilities out there, have generated 378,000 jobs. And they are projected just from astrotourism in the next 10 years, according to the National Park Service, to bring in 5.8 billion with a B dollars, just off of astrotourism. And that's not counting Lowell Observatory out in Flagstaff. That's not counting any of the astronomical research that's being done out there in that research grant. That is just people going out stargazing with guides and, going to restaurants and all the other related industries that would support that, the hotels, everything like that. And I believe this does end my presentation. Let me stop sharing real real quick. And so I'm going to pass it back to Terry to cover. And again, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Brad. You brought up some interesting things. One of the best stories I know of is a person put in a motion detector in their backyard to help save money and, to make it safer. They left their dog out all the time. And every time the dog would move, the light would go off all night long. I I think motion detectors are fantastic, but definitely if you're going to have the family pet in the backyard all night, something to consider. But
Right.
thank you.
Thank you.
You made some great points. All right. And as Brad mentioned, up next is Erin Shaw. Let me tell you a little bit about Erin. She has a master's degree in education. She taught school for a few years, then started working with the ODNR as a park naturalist in 2007. Her office is in Caesars Creek State Park Nature Center. She was born and raised near that park. She knows the area well and has seen many changes over the year. Her passion is astronomy, and she's thrilled to see the growing interest in dark sky Ohio and the general public with this topic. Erin, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Terry. I'm very
Sure.
excited to be here, and it's good to know you and Tracy and Brad. So, and the
Thank you.
Astronomical League. So, thank you all visitors for being on the show. This is my first presentation in the Shaw She Shed. So bear with me here. I'm usually at the state, and it's cold in here. I'm saving some electric. But at the end of my 10 minutes here, I have a big announcement, and this will be the first public announcement. So I'm really excited to tell you that. And I'm going to give you a really quick background of what I do as a state park naturalist in Ohio. And I'm going to tell you why this announcement is so important to me. And as a park naturalist, the main part of my job is public education programs. So I've done a lot of speaking engagements and a lot of outdoor programming. For example, tomorrow we have a cast iron cooking workshop, which is a lot of fun. I teach a lot of fishing, boating, archery, all sorts of things. And so one of my personal passions is the astronomy and night sky programs. And in the last few years, I've been offering more and more astronomy type programming. And again, thank you, Dark Sky Ohio, for opening doors. And I've really been learning a lot, and a big opportunity just opened for me. So let's see, right. The hardest part about my job is the public speaking. The best part of my job is to learn and to teach, and it's a responsibility of mine to share this information about our natural resources. And more, the night sky is becoming closer to the top of importance. I think with the solar eclipse that happened, the northern lights that we're seeing, there's a lot of excitement that's being generated, a lot of questions, public interest, and also within our headquarters. And that's really, really great to see. It's really exciting, actually, because the night sky is a really important natural resource for us. So I mentioned a few of the programs that I do. We have a focus on keeping our water clean, keeping native trees and insects in the park, and sharing that information with the public. And so now we're focusing more on why the night sky is important. A lot of people come to our park to camp, to get away from the city lights, and they're camping under the stars. And Caesar Creek in particular, we have a fairly dark sky area. And we're working on the certification process through Dark Sky Ohio. And I've learned a lot with that. It's a lighting inventory. You go around to the different places and all the lights in the park. And you take measurements, I guess, of what type of light it is, how bright it is. And if you're looking to improve your house or your community, or say your park or your school, the lighting inventory is a good tool to use. And then you come up with a lighting management plan for future, and you try to come into compliance of dark sky certified place. So that's something that we're currently working on. And I want to encourage you to go to Ohio State Parks website. It's Ohio Department of Natural Resources, actually. We have several different divisions within ODNR. So I'm Parks and Watercraft. We have division of geology. We have division of forestry. We have a division of law enforcement. And the mission statement for ODNR is to ensure the wise use, or a balance between the wise use and protection of our natural resources for the benefit of all. So within that is dark skies. And if you go to ODNR website, you look up calendar events, and then you'll see different programs that we're offering. Examples would be night hikes, and we have a big meteor shower camp out in the fall. I do moon canoe programs. I like to try new ones. Upcoming is a UV hike. I know UV is not great for your night vision, but with this, my hope is to have kids and families experience what animals might see, like, because they can see through the night better than we can, or differently than we can. And it would show an example of like how our blue lights or our street lights, how it would interfere with the animal and the ecosystem. And to give you a quick rundown of the big picture with the ecosystem, the light pollution affects everything, like all forms of life. It affects the trees and the plants. And to give you an example with that is, if you put a grow light on a plant, right, it really affects the way that plant grows. A plant and a tree also have to have daylight, and they have to have night. Just like Tracy was saying, they go through different functions, different biological functions during the light and the dark. And another example would be the fall. So we're coming into winter. It's cold, right? But the days are becoming shorter and shorter and shorter. And so with that, it triggers a response in the trees. And so the leaves are starting to change, the sap goes down into the roots, and preparing for the dormant season of winter. And that's a response to how much daylight the trees are getting. And I have a concern about, I don't know, a new thing where people are shining lights up their trees. It looks really nice, but from a ecological perspective, it does change the way the tree grows. It changes the biology of the tree. And when any kind of wildlife comes to cycle that tree into nature, right, the big picture, it changes everything. So if a caterpillar comes to eat the leaves of the tree, it's different. And then birds cannot take shelter, or owls or anything. So shining the lights up into the trees, or street lights on the trees, is bad for wildlife in general, the whole picture. I mentioned insects a little bit, and a easy example with the insects would be the moths, of course, right? You turn on your porch light, and then here come all the moths and bugs swarming around your porch light. And then you go to walk inside your door, and here comes all the bugs. So like Brad was saying, you know, if you use motion lights or timers or the motion light actually is a really, really good option because it's on when you need it. And, you know, as you're walking into the door, it hasn't been on for hours and attracted all kinds of moths that are going to go in your house when you walk in. But the moths and the insects and any animal really is affected by the light because they navigate with the moon and with the stars. And when you turn on the light, it kind of interferes with their navigation. And so they'll swarm onto your porch light, and they kind of get stuck in this light beam, like in a circle, in a light trap of sorts. And they get confused. And since the moths are on your back porch light instead of being out in the field, you know, we're starting to lose our bats. We're starting to lose a lot of our native plants because the system has been affected or interrupted, I guess. So that's an example of how light pollution would affect insects. And you see it on billboards or anywhere, like stadium lights or whatever. Another example would be with the amphibians, and that would be salamanders and frogs. A local example for us at Cedar Creek, we have a big salamander migration. This happens in the spring and it happens at nighttime. And it's amazing. If you've never ever seen it, you should go write that on your bucket list, a salamander migration. You might have one in your area. Some people have no idea this is happening. You can go out if you hit it on the right night, and there's like thousands of salamanders and frogs, and it's so loud it almost hurts your ears. And it's so much fun to go out, and it's that awe, that moment of awe, you know. The salamanders and amphibians are sensitive to the light. So this only happens when it's really dark out. And that migration is an important part of the natural cycle, what I'm telling you about, because as birds are migrating through, that salamander migration is an important food source for the whole big picture of how everything happens and how it works together. An example of reptiles, sea turtles were mentioned at the beginning of this, you know, and that's a fairly well-known example along the shoreline because the baby sea turtles, when they hatch, they're headed towards the full moon. Whereas if the lights on the shoreline outshine the moon, or if it's at the wrong time, the sea turtles will head towards the street lights instead of towards the moon, out towards the ocean where they're supposed to be. And an example at the Nature Center with reptiles is we have a box turtle at the Nature Center, and it has metabolic bone disease because it didn't have the proper lighting as this turtle was developing. So the UVB during the daytime is important also, that you have the right kind of light at day and the right kind of light at night. So they're both equally important. But our turtle didn't have the right kind of light during the day. It was taken in captive, didn't have UVB, so it wasn't able to process calcium. So it has metabolic bone disease. The shell is messed up on it. And an example of fish would be, we've got one place in the lake for fishermen, which is a great spot. And a light turns on and it attracts all the aquatic insects to that light, and you can see it. It's a great fishing spot. So that would be an example of how light pollution affects even the fish that are in the water, because it's actually affecting the aquatic insects, which is what the fish eat. An example of how light pollution affects birds is because most birds migrate at night. And just like the moths, the light can throw off their navigation. So if a big flock of birds is flying over like a big city and they have a skyscraper perhaps with lights that are shining through the windows, and it can interfere with the bird's navigation, and then they kind of get stuck in this light beam or a light trap. And you can look up studies online about how many millions and millions of birds that crash into the window, or because they're stuck in this light. And also mammals, the light interferes with mammals because they can't see. When we turn on our artificial light, then it messes up the mammals. It also interferes with the predator and prey relationship. So the animals that are supposed to be out and doing what they do, they'll be out hiding and trying to avoid that light, the spot where it is. So there's also sky glow, which is a form of pollution. Even if say the light is not shining exactly on this tree, but light glow as a whole can affect the way that the animals interact with each other at nighttime, because it's much brighter than it should be, and they don't have that cloak of protection. And Tracy talked about how it affects humans. So that gives you in a nutshell, like how light pollution affects everything. And out of all of the problems that we have as far as natural resources, is the easiest one to fix, because you just simply like turn the light out, or you could change the color of the bulb, or you could put a hood on the top of the light so that it shines it down, or you could put a motion light or a timer. So it's actually really easy to fix, and it's important. And so to wrap up my talk here, I'm going to tell you about this big reveal, right? This big announcement that I have. This is actually the first public announcement that I've had with this. We've talked about it in meetings and small groups. So this is the first official public announcement with this. And it's life-changing for me, because it's like a dream come true, right? Something that you always hope will happen, and it's really, really happening, and it's happening fast. So the Nature Center got some money coming in, and we're going to redo the displays of all the rooms, and it will be the lake, the land, and the sky. So the whole room will be dedicated to sky things, and in particular, it will be night sky. So more than just programs that I'm offering, like the night hikes that in the meteor shower camp out, when people come into the Nature Center, we'll have a whole room that has night sky displays and interpretive information. So I'll be able to talk about light pollution. I'll be able to show examples. We'll have a display about owls, and because we have the saltwood owls that migrate through the park, and owls just being nocturnal. We'll have a whole display and section on why the night is important to wildlife, which I just give you a really quick overview. We'll have a whole section on how to navigate the night. So that will be talking about how to use your five senses, or how animals navigate the darkness, and how we can practice our night vision too, because when we have rods and cones in our eyes, and cones are what you see color with. and you have to have like light to see that. And at nighttime, we use the rods in our eyes, which when you're looking at something at night, you use your peripheral vision because that's on the outside of the part of your eye. So we'll talk about how to navigate the night, and we're gonna have a area of projection. So we'll be able to, it'll be like a mini planetarium of sorts. So I'll be able to show like how the constellations go across, and the different seasons that are, you know, the North Pole stays in the same spot, but the other ones change seasonally, and how we can navigate using the stars, and, you know, encourage people to go home, make a star chart, and they can navigate in their backyard. But I think it just gives us a sense of place, and a sense of awe and wonder, and the human heritage, right? Because we live close to Fort Ancient, and the whole area is a earthen calendar. So there's these mounds, and it marks the summer solstice and the winter solstice. Another well-known example would be Stonehenge, how they've made this big earthen calendar based on astronomical happenings, I guess. So that would be the navigation. And then the last one would be the magic of the night. And so we're going to have it so that the whole room will go dark, and it will be like it's nighttime. And then the lightning bugs will come out, or, you know, you might see the northern lights, you might see shooting stars, you might see a solar eclipse. And we're still figuring out the details, but I'm so excited, and it's such a great opportunity. And I'm really, really thankful for ODNR and Ohio State Parks, and also Ohio Dark Sky for making this really, really happen, and to see the importance of it. And I think it's becoming like closer to the top of importance. I don't know if that makes sense, but because we focus on water pollution, and we focus on, like I said, the invasive plants. And so now there's more of a focus on light pollution, and how important the night is to everything in life. So anyway, that's what I have to say. Thank you for letting me talk in this opportunity. And yeah, check out Ohio State Parks.
Erin, that is amazing. Congratulations to the park, to all of you. That is fantastic. I can't wait to see what you come up with.
Yeah. So this time next year, it'll be done.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Congratulations to all of you. That will be so cool to be able to go there and to see all that. So thank you very much for the surprise information and sharing it here. And thank you so much for being on the program.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right. Next, what we are going to bring up is we have a youth group in Dark Sky, Ohio. And I would like to introduce first Taryn Bacha. He is a high school junior passionate in environmental engineering and light pollution advocacy. And he is a co-founder of the Starlight Initiative, a youth group focused on light pollution policy and research and technology. And with him is Tony Lee. Tony Lee is a youth leader passionate about advocacy. I'm sorry, I have trouble with that word, advocacy and creativity and impact, with a dedication to addressing global changes through innovative solutions. As a founder of the Starlight Initiative, a youth-led light pollution advocacy organization, he combines cutting-edge ideas with grassroots efforts to promote sustainability. Building on this passion, Tony has conducted significant sustainability research at prestigious university and research institutes, culminating in a forthcoming paper in a top journal in environmental engineering. Beyond the research, Tony expresses his creativeness through music, serving as a member of the Columbus Symphony Youth Orchestra and is principal French horn in the 2004 OMEA All-State Orchestra. Welcome, both of you. I understand you are going to do a presentation together, so I will turn the program over to both of you.
Okay, and who else is coming on, Terry?
Tony Lee and
Tony Lee.
Tram.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
let me
both of
bring
them
him
will
on.
be on.
Yeah, okay. All right, that sounds good.
All right, I'll turn it over to you two.
All right, everyone hear me? So, hey everybody, my name's Tony. I'm one of the co-founders of the Starland Initiative. I believe we've already described what that is, but it's basically just a youth group dedicated to light pollution. And I'm here with my other co-founder, Tarun, and we're both students from Olentangy Liberty High School. So just a brief outline of what we're going to talk about in this presentation. So first, we're going to talk about the issue of light pollution and the importance of youth engagement in this issue and any environmental issue in general. Second, we're going to talk about why we think light pollution is important specifically. And third, we're going to go through the purpose of our youth group under Dark Sky, Ohio, the way we approach light pollution, things we've done, and things we hope to achieve. So one of the things that really got us interested in light pollution is honestly just a few stock images online of stars in these dark sky places we looked up while in class. And we originally thought that these were significantly edited, enhanced, and photoshopped. But when we realized that the night sky is actually supposed to look like this, no matter where you are on Earth, we really got interested and started doing our own research. And we came across this alarming statistic that if light pollution continues on its current track, we could lose sight of the stars in 20 years, right? I'm currently in high school. By the time I'm an adult, my children will have never seen the stars in their lifetime. Light pollution isn't just an economic or health-related issue. It's tied cultures and people together for generations, and it's alarming that these stars will disappear in my lifetime alone. And we believe that youth need to stand up against issues affecting their own futures, whether it's climate change, war, or light pollution. Youth are ultimately the ones who have to bear the brunt of this burden. Youth engage in activism not out of choice, but out of necessity. The necessity to regain control over their own futures. The belief that the world belongs not only to the generation currently in power, but the generation succeeding it. And we believe this narrative is specifically beneficial when it comes to advocacy and policy, because as we've seen through many other environmental related lobbying efforts, the youngest voices are often the most powerful, specifically because of the reasons we stated above. And that's why we really wanted to partner with Dark Sky, Ohio to amplify our voices and efforts. And that's also why we created the Starland Initiative. So we have a lot of students interested in a variety of topics in our group, from community service to innovation. But one of the things we really agreed upon when it comes to light pollution is that there needs to be innovation or nothing is going to change, right? Society is moving forward. It's only getting brighter. It's hard to put a stop to it just by advocating for the stars. So how exactly can we compromise? How can we preserve our environmental and skies while simultaneously moving forward? So the next half of our presentation is really just a few ideas we had and some unique ways we can tackle light pollution. So our first concept / project was the use of motion sensor light bulbs for outdoor lighting. And it's not exactly an innovation like some of the other stuff we'll get to later, but it was one of our very first projects, which really outlines the purpose of what we do. And we originally came up with this idea when writing a grant for the Columbus Youth Climate Action Fund, a micro grant specifically meant for youth in the area to kickstart their own projects. And I know Brad kind of touched on this idea of motion sensing, but the main driving force behind our project specifically was this idea of lifting up marginalized communities while simultaneously protecting our environment. So we understood this idea of energy bills, right? They're expensive. And specifically for low-income neighborhoods, they're forced to actually keep their outdoor lights on at night to deter crime. But these are the same exact people who need these energy savings to begin with. So we wanted to apply a pretty simple concept of motion sensor lights to a new application. And because they only turn on when there's movement, it actually improves safety compared to a light that's on all night while only turning on a small percentage of the time. And this actually saves energy in the environment because energy is in the status quo is derived from fossil fuel-based sources. And It also fights light pollution as well. And the best part about it is that it gives individuals every incentive to adopt it, right? Whether or not they care about light pollution, the stars, or the environment, it does not matter, because as long as there's an economic incentive behind it, then we can fight environmental issues while still moving forward. In fact, the cost of environmentally friendly alternatives, whether it's renewable energy or biofuels, is the main reason why they aren't implemented. Because if they were profitable, then everyone would have them already and we wouldn't have this problem to begin with. So we wanted to keep this economic lens in the back of our mind when designing these projects. That's about it for me. I'll hand it off to my partner Tarun, and he'll talk about some of the other amazing stuff we've been working on.
Hey, so I'm Tarun. I'm a junior at Olentangy Liberty High School. So Tony kind of already explained like the purpose of our youth group. We kind of want to engage like the youth, not just in advocacy in terms of light pollution, but also like actual technology, innovation, and policy. So I'll be talking about a couple things that we've actually worked on as a youth group, and things that we've achieved. So currently we're trying to start a tech and policy youth group. So in addition to the Starlight Initiative, which is like our like individual, like our group initiative, we wanted to actually work with DSI making our own youth group. So we're working with like the international DSI to basically make a policy group. And there already is one, but we want to make one like a youth group that's like specifically geared towards like actual technology and policy, because Tony already like outlined the benefits of actual innovation in terms of like getting the youth to do something and contribute more than like actual advocacy. So we're running into like some roadblocks with that right now, but the goal is to essentially get like the youth not just involved in creating impact in terms of like advocacy, community service, but we also want them to like actually like innovate, and we want them to contribute to better policy. So some of the technological things that we worked on, Tony already talked about the motion sensor, and I think Brad also kind of touched on that with the concept of like signal theory. The thing that we specifically worked on or working on right now in terms of a motion sensor is to lower the proximity of like awareness, right? So I'm pretty sure Terry talked about like how, for example, if a household has a dog in their backyard, the light keeps turning on, right? So on that concept, so like a lot of the current motion sensors have a really high like proximity of awareness. So our goal is to basically like cater this towards like, for example, a burglar or someone that's trying to break into your house and lower that proximity. The two impacts of this is one, better safety, and the second impact is also going to be like reducing costs. And also Tony talked about like the economic perspective and the economic benefit of making like motion sensors and technology more affordable. The second key thing that we're working on right now is a light pollution calculator. So we've kind of basically so like Tony talked about why it's like important to see the stars, right? And that's more than just a technological issue or like a contemporary issue. It's a cultural one too, right? So talked about how like the youth really need to address this, because in the future we won't be able to see the stars, especially our kids. So one thing that we thought that like all people can almost agree on, like collectively, is seeing the stars, right? That's a pretty objective way of like understanding light pollution. And we thought it'd be really comprehensive and understandable for people who aren't currently engaged in light pollution advocacy to evaluate this concept on like a basis of how many stars you can see in your area. So we made this like light pollution calculator based on zip code and the city that you live in, which basically like, predicts how many stars you can see in a certain time frame. So for example, like we had cities like Lima, Columbus, Ohio, which basically showed that like, for example, across a period of 10 to 15 years, this is how many stars you currently see, and this is how the stars are going to decrease. We found this to be really interesting because like everyone can understand like how many stars you can see. It's a very comprehensive and understandable topic. And decreasing stars is like something that's very important to all of us, right? We want to be able to see the stars, but if we can see like through calculator or current technology that the amount of stars that we can see is actively decreasing, then that's like a really important point to address. It's a pinpoint for advocacy. But then the third key concept in the technological I guess like innovation that we're working on is better street light covers. So we're currently working on CAD models to place on street lights. And the like main roadblock that we've run into here is like the actual policy for streetlight regulations. But the goal is to basically reduce like light transparency, right? So we don't want the light going up into the air. We want it just basically going to those like the places where it's intending to go, which is just like to illuminate the area. So you don't want this light pollution going back into the air. We don't want to increase light pollution. So we basically developed like this customizable streetlight cover using CAD models, which can basically be placed on I guess like most street lights, and we're trying to like implement that in terms like of houses and house lights as well. And then on top of that, we're also working on developing LEDs with low light trespassing, and which is it's designed to basically minimize light spill and illumination precise, like basically illuminate precisely, and it offers a range of benefits across environmental, economic, and social dimensions. And there's a couple of key advantages. So the first one of reducing light transparency through better LEDs is cost savings. It reduces like unnecessary lighting issues. There's a long-term savings in terms of LEDs because they have a longer lifespan when you can reduce light trespassing, which is like light going to other areas other than like the specific locations and it's intended to light up. And we can also talk about like optimized urban planning. There's again better human health. There's social benefits. For example, you can talk about like enhanced aesthetics, increased safety. Yeah, so that's that. We worked on a couple of other like technological innovations. We're also on the side trying to work on like making better policy and crafting policy. We've written some letters to state leaders, and the whole point of our organization is to get the youth involved in light pollution advocacy, not just like in like talking about it, community service, but specifically in trying to create a change by themselves in terms of technology and policy. And we're working on this technology. We want to implement it soon. Some of these concepts, like for sure, we've run into roadblocks, but the goal is to at least take a stance on it and at least try to make an effort to improve light pollution in the status quo.
All right. Is that the end then? It is so amazing to see the work that you two are doing and to hear about this. I am so glad to see people your age taking the interest and really putting in some work. You two have done everybody proud. You are doing a fantastic job. I am so glad you're part of Ohio, Dark Sky, Ohio. It is so amazing to hear everything you have done. So thank you so much for your work, your time. You two are incredible. So, all right, with that, if there are any questions anywhere or anything that anyone else would like to say, please feel free to right now.
Well, there are some comments online here in chat. Let me kind of go back through these. Bill McGeaney is watching on Facebook, and I was asking him, does he have problems with light pollution in his area? And he said, you betcha, Bortle 8 or 9 or somewhere thereabouts. He said, I started up a podcast to keep folks listening and talking to the know of the news around light pollution. I had commented back, I said, did you know that while it's rare, there have actually been lawsuits where successful lawsuits that have curbed light pollution offenders. So while that would be kind of an extreme kind of thing to do, I would say that, probably other lawsuits were, didn't occur because, through the helpful actions of the International Dark Sky Association, the IDA. And if you have problems with someone that's offending, you can certainly reach out on your own accord, as you say, Terry, and other people have mentioned, to try to get in touch with your local authorities and try to work something out. But if things are not working out and it's a real problem, IDA can help and step in. And if that doesn't help, then gosh, maybe you do have to take them to court, so to speak. But light pollution is dangerous. It's not only dangerous to us; it's dangerous to wildlife. As Aaron pointed out in detail, Bill McGeaney says that light has proven to increase lead thickness in some trees, and that may hinder insects' ability to consume those leaves. So that just kind of breaks the cycle of what happens in nature. The bird strikes that Aaron pointed out, the millions of birds that are killed each year, that's a reality,
Yeah.
And the effects of depression, there's even been some, I guess, studies linking cancer to light pollution. It's a serious thing,
Yeah, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Exactly.
It is.
So,
as you listen to everybody, the whole story builds here. Everybody has brought something different to the table, and it tells the full story, not just to astronomy, not just to health, not to just energy. There is a whole list,
it's not just nice to see the stars, folks. It's really important stuff, so so you should take it seriously. There are people asking questions about the IDA. I did post the website, but it is darksky.org. I know that this group is affiliated with them, and Terry and myself, and I think most people in the Astronomical League have had some interaction with the Dark Sky International. It used to be called the International Dark Sky Association. A little bit different change of name, but it's the same group of people started by David Crawford and Tim Hunter. David's no longer with us, but Tim is still out there plugging away and making a difference in dark skies. So, but I think that we are towards the end of our program, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching yet another Astronomical League live program. We'll be back next month with another one. If you are here in Arkansas, watching locally on December 7th, I think that's Saturday, December 7th, we will have a class. So if you have a telescope that you haven't worked with in a while, or maybe have never worked with and you want to know how to use it, we have free classes here. And I'll make sure that we have lots of cool refreshments and maybe cookies, snacks, that kind of thing. And Terry, I think that you wanted to make an announcement.
Yeah, I wanted to just say one thing, as long as I don't go offline again. Remember to everybody out there, you can join Dark Sky Ohio. And when you do join Dark Sky, once you join Dark Sky, you will automatically become a member of the chapter in your state, if there is a chapter in your state. So if you join Dark Sky International, you automatically, and you're from Ohio, you will automatically become a member of Dark Sky Ohio. So if you do that, please make sure you let us know that you're there and that you're a new member. We have captains in different areas across the state, and let us know you're there if you do join, and we'd love to have you join. And with that, I have a short little bit of slides to show you here. As soon as there we are. I wanted to talk a little bit about Bryce Canyon. As you know, the Astronomical League has a conference every year called ALCON. And this year we will be at Bryce Canyon on June 25th to the 28th. And the website is up. It's astrocon2025.org. We have already sold out of a third of the rooms. It's not till June. Please, if you are considering going to Alcon at Bryce Canyon this year, please consider signing up, registering early. We will probably be sold out of rooms, I would guess. We have a large ad coming out in the Reflector that will be out in December. And I'm thinking after that, there will be a lot of rooms will disappear pretty quickly. The schedule for Alcon is also online at astrocon2025.org. And I did want to say next month, we will be back on December 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Scott Harrington. The last time he came on, a bad storm hit him. He's in the rural area of Utah, and his electric went out. We had to cancel the program at that time because he couldn't get online. So Scott is coming back with observing it all with binoculars, about watching all of the dark sky, all of the objects in the sky at night with binoculars. So please join us next time on December 6th. And for me, that's all I've got. Does anybody else up there have anything they would like to say before we sign off? All right, Scott, I'm going to turn it back to you, and I would like to thank everybody that was on as a speaker. My gosh, you guys did fantastic. You told the whole story, the whole thing. And that's what everybody needs to understand. As Brad was saying, you need to understand what this is. And you can help by doing even small things will help. Thank you, speakers, and thank you, everybody else out there. We so appreciate you being here. Please come back and join us on December 6th for Scott Harrington. And Scott Roberts, I will now turn that back over to you.
All right, that sounds good. Yep. Well, thanks everyone once again for tuning in, and we will be back with a Global Star Party that is coming on next Tuesday. Of course, that will feature David Levy and a number of other amateur astronomers that share their passion and their knowledge from all over the world. So we hope that you tune in and do as our great friend Jack Horkheimer always used to say, and that is just to keep looking up. So have a good night. Thanks.